All right, all right. G'day, Ed. How you doing, mate?
Living the dream, Robbie. Thanks for asking. How are you, my friend?
Yeah, I'm excited, man. I'm excited to be doing a podcast. It's been a couple of weeks since we sat down and did this. A lot's been going on in the world, so looking forward to catching up with you, seeing what's happening in your world and what your views are of all the madness that's going on. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to The Unspoken Truth. I'm your host, Rob Russ. I'm joined by my fabulous and good mate, Ed Anderson, as my co-host today. We're going to be talking all things depopulation. We're going to be talking digital IDs. Oh my God, that's all happening here in Australia, and I've got some stuff to share around that. We're going to be talking about the war in Ukraine and in Gaza as well, and the potential for this to blow up and be much worse than anybody anticipates over in China and Taiwan as well. Ed, I want to start off with your topic to begin with, because I think it's really a really important thing with what's going on. What I'm seeing is the systematic population collapse around the world for a variety of different reasons. The first one being the lower birth rates that are happening in our societies. And you had a report that you wanted to share with us, but we're going to get a copyright strike if we use that. So why don't you take it away and tell us what your thoughts are on all this?
Yeah, so if anybody doesn't want to watch my full report on that, if you go to the Hey Ed YouTube channel, it is on there. But Rob's right. It might get a strike or get demonetized. So I might only have it up for a day or two. So if you want to watch it. Go to the Hey Ed YouTube channel and watch it real fast. But yeah, I mean, because this is a subject that I've wanted to talk about for quite a while. But we got distracted with other topics. This issue of the depopulation, it's an important issue, and it affects us in ways that people probably don't really think through. When you think that back in the 1950s, the fertility rate was 4 to 5 children per family.
How many kids are in your family? How many brothers and sisters do you have?
It was 6 kids in my family.
Yeah, so you're one of 6.
Yep, 1 of 6, and it wasn't uncommon for my friends to come from super sized families. And I even knew people who had families of 8 to 10 people. And I think
my ex-wife was one of 8. And I remember when I met her, her mum, I think, is one of like 12 or 13, and her dad, same thing, one of 12 or 13 as well. These massive extended families and these giant groups of people. That, I just couldn't remember everybody's name. There's too many of them. You see them too infrequently to know who they are. And now, like one generation later, like with my ex-wife. So I had 2 kids with her. She remarried a fella who had 2 kids. So there's 4 kids in that kind of extended nuclear family, and then they had like 3 more. So in essence, she kind of followed in the footsteps of her family and did that as well. You change your nappies for 25 years is what it seems like, and the oldest is my son Cameron, or our son Cameron, who's now 23. So, but from 23 all the way down to kindergarten age children. That's how the range and the spectrum of that is. But I think that's a bit unusual in Australian society, actually. That's the exception, not the rule. The rule these days is 1.5 to 2 kids here in Australian society.
Yeah. Well, according to the UN stats, I fucking hate the UN, but they are useful as far as giving stats and that kind of thing. The worldwide depopulation curve is already trending downward, and their prediction that now China is probably the starkest example of this, is that they're expected that by 2050 the population there could decline by 50%.
If you read the Peter Zion stuff, he's a big one on those statistics and analytics and talks about that as well. But you don't have to look too far into the future to actually see what it looks like in an economy. We can go back to a country that's near and dear to your heart that you lived in for a couple of years in Japan. And we can see in Japan that the country is flat broke, and there's no chance that the country can recover its economy because everybody is above the age of like 75 years old, and these people are just too old to go to work. They don't want to go to work anymore either, and they've got another 25 or 30 years of life ahead of them as elderly people, and society just can't sustain that. It's a real problem.
Yeah, well, so my focus in my presentation was the effect of social media on all of this. We have the Gen Z generation now. They're the first generation that is like the full impact of social media, right? The previous generation, they also were hit influenced hard by social media. But Gen Z, they grew up, with social media, and you have a population of young men who sit at the computer, and they don't. I think social skills have plummeted, and because young men, they get all the gratification with no fuss, no muss. They don't have to go out and go to the trouble of meeting girls and getting any kind of game. They don't have to bother going to the gym and showering and dealing with rejection. And then when you. I mean, it's really sad. We have a generation. I'm sorry, guys. You guys are fucking wimps. You guys,
Are you sure? Are you sure, or is it just like every generation that is before us looks back at the generation behind them and says, you're a bunch of fucking pussies. We raised a bunch of bloody soft cock fucking snowflakes. What the hell? Like, is it really true? I saw an interview with he was an ex-Israeli soldier. He was in the war in the late 1960s and the early 1970s, the two conflicts that they had there. And he was of that same opinion that you and I are of, this generation are a bunch of fucking softcock social media bloody wannabe TikTok influencers. And the fellow that was interviewing him said, well, how do you think the IDF have performed in this conflict? And he said, I've had to eat a piece of humble pie. They've performed magnificently. And what he was doing is he was comparing his generation of soldiers to the new generation of soldiers, thinking that for some reason, because of social media, that the new generation of soldiers would be worse than the previous one. But actually the opposite is true. Soldiers have never been smarter, sharper, fitter, and more lethal than they are on today's battlefield. But that doesn't really translate into normal society because there's such a small percentage of people that are in the military that actually would fight for us and be on the front lines for us.
Well, yeah, I mean, the guys who are going to be attracted to the military, they tend to be the guys with some testosterone in them, But well, and so when you look at them in a narrow lens, yeah, hey boy, these guys have game. But then you pan out and you see the soy boys involved, and there's a lot more soy boys than there are Navy SEAL types out there.
Yeah, there's just not that many people that are attracted to that military style thing. First of all, because it's service, it requires effort and it's hard work, and just not that many people are attracted to it. It's in terms of population, there's not that many of them.
Yeah, but the net result is, so in my research, I've seen all these videos, and there's a lot of talk out there about the sexist society, how we have a sexist generation. Young men, the Gen Zers particularly, they're not having sex. Japan, it's got the nickname now of a sexist society. The young men, they think that their economic prospects are bad. They think the whole idea of dating is anathema because they can they got sex dolls now, and they've got
AI robots, AI companions.
Robots. AI. My original title for my presentation, I'm not going to say it here because I don't want to, but I had a really catchy title, but it involved AI and procreation. And I thought, well, I can't use that because I'll definitely not get the video, on the channel. But the influences around generating this sexist society is really concerning, because we can make all the excuses in the world, but in the end, the result is going to be the same. The result is what worries me, is they're not having babies. The one stat is that in the Gen Z generation, 57% of that generation are not interested in having any kids at all. They don't want to have kids. They just don't.
And the reason
don't want to have kids.
When you look at those statistics as well, it's really alarming, the reasons for that. There's always going to be a percentage of the population that don't want to have kids because they just don't see themselves as having children. And that's fine. That's like a personal choice. I kind of understand that.
It's not
well, hold on. Let me join the dots here for you.
Yeah.
I think it's okay when it's a personal choice where they're like, no, I just don't want to have kids. If you kind of rewind the clock to your generation and my generation, if someone said that to you, just be like, hey, whatever. That's kind of how some people are. But the reality is, the reason that people are not having babies today is quite different to what yours and my generation is. And part of the thing that they say is, oh, I don't want to bring my children into the world when there's climate change. I'm like, what? What? It's like saying, I don't want to have a baby because there's going to be a bushfire or a thunderstorm. Like, there's always going to be bushfires and thunderstorms. And, you know, like, at what point is there climate change? When are you starting to measure on the calendar that the temperature is warming up? Because if you go back a little bit further on the calendar, you'll see that the temperature is cooling down, and a little bit of warming that we're experiencing here is actually okay and good for us, and it's good for the planet. It's good for everything. Like the world is not going to end in some boiling apocalypse like the Guterres would have you think from the United Nations. It's just complete and total and absolute nonsense. None of that makes any sense.
Well, these mushy-minded, these are the same people who attended our Ivy League schools. These people are fucking idiots. You know, their brains are not fully formed yet. These are not smart people, and so they don't bother with logic. They don't bother listening to what you just said. But then they go right to the bumper sticker, brainwashed, message that they've been given by people that they admire. Now, for the guys, most of the guys, they just parrot what the pretty girl says because in
order to try and get lucky, but it's not working because it's actually hard work to go and get laid, man. It's hard.
Yeah, look, don't bother making friends with those feminists. The feminists hate you anyway. So you're not going to get anywhere with those chicks anyway. So
well, here it is, straight from the horse's mouth. Colin says in the comments there, I'm a professor at my university, and fewer young persons are not even dating. They don't even know how to start relationships. Well, I think there's always going to be an element of awkward people out there that are pretty clumsy and clunky out there, and it's just society has changed, and the reason society has changed is because social media has led people to believe that the world is a bad place, America's a horrible place, Australia should be saying sorry for every single fucking thing that we've done ever in the past, and everybody has to have this self-loathing about them, so how could you possibly have a relationship with somebody? It's such a precarious thing that you've got to do. You've got to walk around on eggshells at every moment that you get. And if you're a conservative young male, Ivy League football player, it makes it really, really hard to go and talk to a pretty girl because I don't know what to say because I'm going to upset her at every second that I say something because she's influenced by Kim Kardashian and some TikTok fucking bullshit. It's like makes life really, really hard for young men.
Oh yeah, well, cry me a river. But shout out to Colin as well. Colin's a great guy. Love Colin. Hey, great to see you, Colin. And thanks for chiming in. Yeah, listen. When he says, his college students, they're not dating anymore. They're not socialized. They don't know how to start a relationship. They're not. I gotta tell you, Rob. Now between you and me here, okay, it's just two guys talking. Yeah, I'm sure no one else is listening. Right? It's just you and me. When I was a young guy, I gotta tell you, I was. I don't know if I'd say I was out of control. That's a little strong, but I couldn't wait to meet girls. I couldn't, that. I mean, for a typical guy, that's top of mind. That you couldn't get through like 10 minutes without having that on your mind. So what the hell is going on? I mean, look, Rob. Okay, so let me ask you a serious question.
We only have serious conversations here, so
That's right. So, do you think that for the sake of the survival of the human race, should I have my vasectomy reversed? And
you might have to jump back and get back in the game, mate, and do it, even though it's a bit later in life. It doesn't matter. You're still good to go.
It doesn't matter for the guy, but for the girl. It doesn't matter for the guy. Listen, guys, if you don't pick up your game, guys like me are going to have to, get back into the war. I mean, come on. I just don't get it, guys. Look, I promise you that sex with a real person is a lot better than anything.
It's a lot better than your hand, man. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
It's way, way, way better than your hand. I got a little bit more faith in the younger generation. I'm not of the belief that we raised a bunch of fucking soy boys and that, because I bet you if I went down to 3 RAR or 2 RAR, or I went down to 1 Commando, there'd be some hardcore dudes down there. And you know, it's all a bit of an echo chamber as well, Ed. The gym that I go to here in the Sutherland Shire, Gold's Gym, it's really the only bodybuilding gym in the Sutherland Shire. The rest of them are all kind of much of a muchness. They're all the same. But every time I go into that gym, man, I see some people working hard. And I see some bodybuilding dudes in there. I see some girls in there, just like people go out on stage and say, look at how hard I've worked, check this out.
Yeah.
And whenever I go in that gym, I don't really not train properly, because everyone around me is training really, really hard. But that's the echo chamber that I'm in, right? So I go to a location like that to train because it's a bit motivating, it's a bit inspiring, and I'm certain that everybody that attends that gym feels a bit motivated and a bit inspired. All the pictures on the wall, the fantastic equipment. It's a bit expensive to be in there as well. If you're going to go there, you're going to train, right? You're not going to faff about and have conversations standing on the side of the treadmill while you're watching your mate work out. So I got a bit more faith in society and humanity like that, but that is kind of tempered by the fact that people like Elon Musk are saying, you need to have more babies. He knows the statistics. And whether you like the Australian government or not, for a long time, the Australian government has saying, have one for mum, have one for dad, and have one for the country. We need to have more than two kids each. And I remember when John Howard was still the Prime Minister and Peter Costello was the Treasurer, he was the one that said that. And just recently, the Treasurer here in Australia, Jim Chalmers, like him or hate him, he's not wrong in what he's saying, that we need to have more kids, because what the information that they've got is based on the demographics. And all you have to do is read a Peter Zion book to learn about the demographics, to understand that we're not, the curve and the pyramid is upside down. There's more old people than there is young people, and society will come undone. Yep. And these things are a real problem because they'll radically change the way society operates and the way things happen in society. And what it does is it drives up the cost of everything as well. If there's not enough young people completing apprenticeships in building and carpentry and plumbing and electricians and all that sort of thing, there's no one to build your houses. Yep. And if all of those people are leaving the workforce and that's all going away, and there's less and less people entering the workforce, it really changes it. You know, the Peter Zion book that I read, the end is just the beginning or something like that. I can't remember. It's about demographics, and it describes what happens to society and how it's all going to fall off a cliff. And you can buy into it, you know, because his books are based on research, and really all he's doing is compiling the research and giving it to you in a meaningful way. But it's also a very biased way, because you can hear that and go, oh yeah, okay, cool. And if you look at Japanese society, even though their pyramids are completely and totally inverted, society still functions. People still go out for dinner. They still go to the shops. They still have groceries. They still, but things are different, right? And it changes society. Japanese society is very different to what Australian society is or what American society is because of that inversion.
Well, it depends. Okay, so I mean, the nature of society, you know, I would theorize is going to be roughly the same. But what's going to happen here is you're going to have everyone moving to fill in the gaps, right? So like in Japan, there are already towns where they're giving away houses for free because they're trying to attract people just to move, because they're ghost towns. So please come out here. So as there are fewer people, so Tokyo is probably always going to be the same size, right? But the countryside is going to be depleted. Those people are going to move to the cities to make a living and to get the services. So Tokyo will probably always have roughly the same population, but it's going to be at the expense of all the other cities. And so I think that's true with every country. Is the big cities are population probably always going to be pretty much the same, because people are going to pour in from the outlying areas. Okay, so but societies in aggregate, you're right. We're going to have less professionals. Now, of course, from a purely economic point of view, you know, our social security system here in America, it is the definition of a Ponzi scheme, right? It's based on, it's based on having the younger people contributing, you know, being productive to finance the older population, and as they diminish, we're in really big trouble. So there are real severe economic issues. Now, one cool fact is you know, and I discussed it a little bit in my presentation. is it took 1,000 years for the world population to hit 1 billion people. But then it only took 200 years for the population to hit 8 billion people.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? Yeah.
Right. So human civilization was around, 500 years ago. The population. So you got to keep that kind of. I want to kind of move the discussion a little bit on this. I want to talk another kind of insidious, take on this issue, and that is part of this depopulation problem is not just sociological, but part of it is scientific. We are. It is a scientific fact that testosterone levels and sperm levels have gone down dramatically since the World War II generation. And if you add to that, and look, that probably has to do with our god awful diet that we eat and all sorts of other factors, but they are coming down. And so genetically, we pass that on to the next generation. So I think we're getting a degradation of genes with every new generation. And add to that, okay, this is kind of really scary, and I really want to get your take on this. We are getting a lot of reports now out there. It's anecdotal, but pretty official, that these jabs that they made us have a couple of years ago from the worldwide flu that we had, and I can't say the name because we'll get demonetized. It is wreaking havoc with the reproductive systems of both men and women, particularly women.
It's all come out now that 80% of pregnant women that have been jabbed had miscarriages. And that's just in the trials. But here in Australia, they said, no, it's safe. You can get one, you can get two, you can get as many as you want. And then there's a large percentage. I'm reading a book at the moment by a lady named Naomi Wolf. And you might have heard of her before. She's a famous leftist, actually, who was completely cancelled from the world. And this is the name of her book. It's called Facing the Beast. I'll find a link and I'll put it in the description later on. So she goes through the 75,000 pages of redacted Pfizer documents that were unlocked by Freedom of Information. She assembled a team of doctors around the world. I think it was about 3,400 doctors from memory, something like that, over a period of time. And each one of those people has taken a piece of that documentation to look at what was actually going on. And her conclusion from it all is exactly what you described, Ed. The conclusion is that this entire thing was a sterilization process. It wasn't meant to kill you, it was meant to sterilize the entire population, and the next generation, there won't be another generation because it's next to impossible. If you're an unjabbed person, whatever you do not have unprotected intercourse with a jabbed person because it will sterilize you too. And all of the documents that they released, the Pfizer documents that they released, and all of the people that she had on her team to go through it all, prove that they know about it and prove that they knew about it, and also proves that the government knew about it as well. So here's the thing. Your government tried to sterilize you. Your government actually knew that this was actually going to happen, and it was all of those lipid nanoparticles were going to get into every single cell of your body, including your ovaries and including your testes, and it would lower your sperm count, your sperm production, and it would stop you as a woman from ovulating. No more eggs coming down those fallopian tubes to be fertilized. Have all the sex in the world that you want, but ain't nothing to fertilize there because they're all stuck inside your ovaries. All of this is well documented and well known, and it's all coming out, man. These are the main. It's very, very hard to conceive, and let's kind of just shift gears here a little bit as well and talk a bit about that because I think it's important. It's hard to conceive the level of evil that they went through to do this. And it's hard to believe the level of social engineering that happened here. Joseph Goebbels would be like blushing at how shit he was. He's on the radio like screaming in German or whatever, and then his boss is on stage screaming and waving his arms around in front of 20,000 people. But in the scheme of things, that was like a kindergarten fucking picnic. Yep. And when you listen very closely to that audiobook, and I think there's a few really, really important books that have come out in the last couple of years. The Robert F. Kennedy books, the real Anthony Fauci books, and the follow-up book to that are really, really important because it exposes everything. And we now know that the NIH were funding gain-of-function research in the Wuhan laboratory. Goodbye, nice knowing you, everybody. But it came out in in the Senate hearings that the Americans funded the gain-of-function research that happened there. So the entire thing was planned, but that has nothing to do with everybody getting a sterilization injection. That's what it was. Everyone was sterilized, and they sterilized 98% of the Australian population, and the side effects of that were that they were all known. All of them were known. All of this information was known in the 75,000 pages of redacted documentation. Don't believe me? Think I'm some crazy tinfoil hat wearing conspiracy theorist? Just listen to Naomi's book, and she'll tell you word for word exactly what happened. And you can go and research it yourself. And once again, Robert F. Kennedy has, at the start of his book, he says, anybody's got any questions about this? You want to ask me some questions? Just write to me, and I'll answer your questions. If you want to challenge anything that I say in this book, right? Nobody has challenged him about anything that he said, about any of it. None of it. And Dr. Judy Malkovich came out and says that there's no such thing as AIDS. Here's how you get AIDS. Here's a jab. And we'll jab all of these gay people, we'll jab all of these prostitutes, and we'll give them this thing, and we'll call that AIDS, and it turns into full-blown HIV and all this fucking bullshit. And so Robert F. Kennedy Jr. writes about that in his book, The Real Anthony Fauci, because he's the one that's responsible for it all. And everything that's happened up until now has really, really shown that this thing was so unbelievably evil. But here's the thing that Naomi, she joins the dots for you that you never thought of before. And I never really thought of it at this level either, but I think maybe let's have a little discussion about this. And, if we're going to talk about something, let's go all the way down the rabbit hole. So let me take you down the rabbit hole. They attacked us on so many levels. They locked us up in our houses, right? So they separated us. They separated us from our families. They separated us from elderly people, from our children, from loved ones. And they told me that I couldn't go to the gym. All right, no worries. I'll go to the park. No, you're not allowed to go to the park either. All right, no worries. I'll just go for a walk and I'll go and do some push-ups. No, can't do that either. All right, no worries. I'll get my TRX bands and I'll put it in the fucking tree in my backyard and I'll do my exercise there. Fuck you. You'll never be able to stop me from exercising. Fuck you. I don't care what you do. You can try and exclude me from society all you want, but you're never going to stop me from doing the things that I want to do. No matter how many rules you've got, I'll do whatever the fuck I want because I just am not going to listen to anything that you tell me to do. And I know that I knew that this was fake when they put fucking a fence around the chin-up bar at my local park. A fence. Yeah? And I several times contemplated just moving the fence out of the way and just going and doing chin-ups. Well, what are you going to do? Say, hey, mate, don't do that. You can't do that. Or what are you going to do? Arrest me from doing chin-ups? Yeah. Like, are you kidding me? But yes, that's the answer. So they separated us. They took this away. But they said you could still go to a brothel. They said that you could still buy alcohol. Yeah. But they separated you from society. If you didn't show your QR code and proof that you were doubled, then you couldn't go into that restaurant. You couldn't go into that cafe. You couldn't go into that shop. You were excluded from these things. It's this Jim Crow stuff, this apartheid thing. If you went to a wedding, you could get up and dance, but you couldn't sing. You couldn't do it. So what they're doing is that they were attacking us at every level of our psychology. And this was the biggest psyop in the world. Yep. And I'll bring it home here for you. When I think about it, and I think about how fucking useless the Australian government is, and how useless the politicians are that we have, and then I think about every country in the world is full of useless fucking politicians. It's full of useless politicians doing the best that they can. So assume for a second that these people are acting on the side of good and trying to do the right thing. Just play along with me. Okay. There's no possible way that you could get everybody marching in the same direction at the same time. There's no possible way. You can't get them to do that. There's too many variables, too many people. How did the New Zealand government follow exactly the Australian government? And how did New South Wales follow Victoria, follow Queensland, follow Western Australia? How did everybody start doing exactly the same thing at exactly the same time? When normally in society, it's just complete and total and absolute chaos. So Naomi Wolf says that this is a force that's outside of us. Yep. This is an existential force outside of us, like a good and evil force, but a pre-Christian force, a pre-Islam force, a pre-Judaism force, like some evil Baal thing like that. And the only thing that I can think of is what's happening is it's controlled by an AI robot. The whole thing was orchestrated by AI. So work with me here. It's a bit of a leap, and I told you I was going to take you all the way down the rabbit hole, but here's the thing. It's known that when Google was invented in the mid-90s that they were trying to create AGI. And it's also known that about 10 years after Google existed, they had AGI. And they had AGI to run a variety of different things in society, not in the way that you think. And when I think back to the late 90s, early or mid 2000s, remember that TV show Person of Interest? Mm-hmm. Yeah, with Jim Caviezel in it? Yep. You are being watched. And the idea behind that show is that there's a computer that can see every single camera in the world, and it can predict the crime. And what it does, it stops the crime before the crime actually happens. That's the person of interest. We're going to stop that person of interest from committing the crime. And then we had Minority Report, and we had the pre-crime in Minority Report. Today, we have those actual systems. Those systems are real. They really exist, and they work. They work incredibly well because they're based on algorithms that stop things from happening. And I think of when you hear about a story about when somebody was cancelled. So if you've ever heard the story of Andrew Tate being cancelled, like him or hate him, one day he woke up and he's like, oh, my Gmail's not working. Oh, I can't get an Uber. Oh, what's happening there? I can't access my bank account. Oh, I can't do this. So everything happened all at once for him. So if you think of your mobile phone and you think of all the apps that you've got on your phone, if you just click your phone on for a second and you look at just the home screen there, everything there didn't work for Andrew all at once, like in one morning. So how is it possible that Google cancelled him at the same time as Uber cancelled him at the same time as his banking app and his access to something else, and all of that went away together collectively at the same time? How is that possible? Then if you hear the story of Nigel Farage, he was cancelled the same way as well, and he was debanked and all of that stuff went away. If you hear the story of Naomi Wolf when she was cancelled, the same thing happened to her. It happened all at once. Naomi Wolf was a little bit different because she was on the left. And what the left did is they used the power of media, because she was a writer and a journalist, and get this, she was speaking for 30 years, Ed. 30 years she's talking about women's rights and women's reproductive health. So she's a woman talking about girls that have their period and talking about babies and all of these things related to women's issues. That's what she's an expert in. She's a journalist. She writes about these things and she communicates. She does interviews. She does all of that. And what she said was, hey, everybody that's getting this jab thing, all is causing huge problems with women's menstrual cycles. Some women are not having a cycle at all. Some women are having 2 cycles in a month. Some are having intermittent ones. Some are having really serious ones. Some are having all sorts of other complications that are associated with it. And the minute she came out and said that, they said, no, you don't. No, you don't. And they shit-canned her simultaneously from everything. She was cancelled simultaneously from everything. And her deduction is that how could so many complicated things and so many moving parts all come together to move in the same direction at exactly the same time? How could she be cancelled from 50 different publishing platforms all at the same time on the same day? There's only one explanation. Is either somebody is controlling every single one of those things and they have a direct line into those particular things, which I doubt. That's a fucking stretch, man. Imagine trying to get on the phone and call somebody at X or somebody at Facebook or at Meta or somebody at YouTube. I've got a direct line to all of those people that matter because I'm the government and I don't want you saying that shit anymore. Bang. And the email goes, cancel this person immediately. Okay, cool. I'll cancel all your accounts. Sure. No worries. I can cancel. Done. So I can get that. But then on the same day, there's like 20 different articles about her saying that she's a fucking tinfoil hat wearing lunatic. But I could understand if maybe there was like one article, then it got picked up by another outlet, but then another one, but then another. And if you hear the stories of the way that people get cancelled and the way they get shit-canned from society, it all happens all at the same time, and then the media comes in over the top of it. What possibly else could be running it, Ed? What else could it be?
Well, no, I agree. Okay, look, I'm 90% there, man. With you.
It's a hypothesis, right? That she's got, and I'm thinking that maybe it's right.
Well, when you think about it, our lives are all digital now. Every aspect of our lives is digital. And of course, the final piece of the puzzle is being pushed through right now in the form of these CBDCs. They want complete control. So I can see DARPA coming up, with the Black Ops program, intelligence program, saying, all right, you know what? Let's find a way to pull in every single person's, personal data, because it's all digital. We can find every aspect of their life. We just have to know where to go to grab that information. Okay, give me his full name and his social security number. Okay.
So that part I'm 100% with you, and that part makes that doesn't seem like a stretch. Hello, I'm from the government. You need to do what I tell you to do, or I'll shut your platform off. All right, no worries. What do you want me to do? I want you to cancel that guy's account. Okay, cancelled. And they do that 20 times, and they shit can you. But what I can't get past is the media, the coordinated media assaults on these people that are cancelled, and that can only come from a level of sophistication that's well beyond what we know. I think that's very, very different to calling each one of these companies or sending a text message or an email to each one of these companies saying cancel their account. That's a plausible thing, but all the other stuff that goes with it, and it's with the Andrew Tate thing, what they do is they go after you for sexually based crimes because they're the most heinous things that people can do to each other, and it sticks forever. It's not like he was involved in some sort of other criminal activity. He's involved in these sexual exploitation crimes. So they try and pin this on Andrew Tate, but we have Jeffrey Epstein over there that has hundreds and hundreds of people on a list that we don't know anything about. And we have P. Diddy over there with hundreds and hundreds of people on a list that we don't know anything about. And the whole thing is a giant CIA, FBI operation. And they're the ones that are controlling it. Because if the list comes out, it will come out that the CIA are the ones responsible for it. The same way that the Pentagon, CIA, and DARPA are responsible for the pandemic. It's all coming out. All of it's coming out, man.
Well, there is a catch-all phrase for what you're talking about. And it's called the deep state. These are the people who know where all the levers are. They know how to pull them. They know how to aggregate the information that they need, and they know how to coordinate. They know, and that's why the mainstream media, these people all talk about. I did a video once where I showed a clip where there's like 100 different newscasters reporting.
Yeah, they're all the same. They're all the same thing. Yeah, in unison.
Right. So in terms of coordination, look at the coordination going on around, Donald Trump. You think that it's a coincidence that 5 different jurisdictions, started going after him for, in 5 different areas. It's all coordinated. This is what these people. This is part of the cabal. This is the textbook definition of the deep state. This is what the deep state is. These are unaccountable people behind the curtains running the show. That's why it almost does not matter who the president of the United States is. And that's why Donald Trump is so feared. They're going to have so much, because he's the one guy who has an outside chance of putting a dent in the system. Although I think even he cannot do, because it's just too strong. It's too deep. The roots. This thing has been developed over decades. So these people are really entrenched, and they know how to cancel people, both literally and metaphorically. They know how to make you irrelevant one way.
Well, let's transition to that, because the digital ID has rolled out here in Australia. In some ways, we've already got a digital ID. We've got a MyGov app here in Australia, which allows you to access the various different sources, and you have to put your ID in there to get it. If you want to be a company director here in Australia and continue to be a company director, this is how they coerce you. You must supply all of your ID. You must supply your passport, your name, your address, all of the information to be a director of a company. It's the KYC stuff, same as the banking system. So if you didn't comply with that by a certain date, I think it was about 18 months ago, no more company director for you. You can't operate a small business, is what it means. In order for you to do it, you must be coerced into doing it. I want to share my screen here and and I want to read a little bit of an article here that we've got from a fella on X. His name's Leon Hill. Make sure you go and give him a follow here. It says, Australia just passed its digital identity bill into law. I'm an Australian, but I live in Iceland. a country that already has an all-encompassing digital ID system. If you're wondering how Australia's new system will play out, I'll tell you here. And also how Australians who don't want a digital ID can attempt to protect themselves, at least for a short while. In Iceland, the digital ID system is linked to each person's Knettila, that must be their currency, or their social security number. I sign into everything with my electronic ID via my phone. Anytime I access my bank account, phone services, accounting, tax, insurance, credit score, manage my assets, car or house, power bill, medical record, when I vote, or even when I pull up a store receipt of something I've bought, it's all linked to my digital ID. Everything's in one place. Everything. You cannot not have a digital ID to live in Iceland. It's impossible. You can't get the power turned on. You can't get a phone number, buy a car, buy or register a car, rent or buy a house, or even buy certain items without having your digital ID. You need one. This has its benefits. It makes life more streamlined when you're trying to do something in daily life, but it also means there's no privacy at all in Iceland. Anyone can look up where I live, the license plate of my car, how much tax I paid last year, my phone number, you name it, it's all public and available, and all you need is my ID to find out. But the government has access to more. The Icelandic government and tax office has access to my bank accounts and knows every transaction I make, what I spend, and what I earn. They don't need a warrant or anything else to access it. It's theirs. They just need a probable cause to look at it. Australians, this is what's coming for you. Over the coming years, the government will make it impossible to opt out of the digital ID system. You need one for everything. And most importantly, they'll coerce Australians into adopting it by creating laws that link it to the most important thing you need to survive in today's modern world, your bank account. Yep. They'll do it on the grounds of anti-money laundering and financial safety. Right. The government will enforce laws onto banks, among the many ID verification laws already mandated by banks, that if you don't have the digital ID, you won't be able to open, keep, or use a bank account. If you refuse, you'll effectively be locked out of society because in today's modern world, you'll need access to the banking systems to survive. Banking will be first, then everything else in society will be linked to your digital ID. Nothing will ever again be private. Just like in Iceland today, the government will know everything, always, forever. So are there ways to opt out? Yes, and he goes on with that. So the whole point of me sharing that is to show you exactly what's coming and what's going on. And no politician in Australia, if you're a politician in Australia and you voted for this, you should immediately be dismissed from office. No Australian citizen wants this to happen to them. No Australian citizen wants it. No one. Nobody in Australia wants it.
Whoa. Okay. I wonder about that, my friend, and this is my concern. We have both Australia and America, and most Western countries, we have very tribal societies. These people, how the hell does Joe Biden have any approval rating? Given the damage that he has done to our country, why do any of these liberals, these leftists, why do they have any support?
It's the same here in Australia with Anthony Albanese. The systematic destruction of our society and the systematic division of our society, it's all on purpose. Yeah. And I think it's because people don't, they're just like, I just can't be bothered paying attention to it. But you have to now pay attention to it.
Hey, I hope that's all it is. But my fear is...
You think they want it?
My fear is that people, we have generations right now. Listen, we've had generations. Our school system has been hijacked by the socialists and the leftists and people with that agenda. And these people are much more concerned with indoctrinating your kids into their cause than teaching them math and English. All right. So these people have been indoctrinated. So now the parents who have kids in school, these people they're products of that school system themselves. And that's how we've gotten to this point. So you got to give it to these socialists. They played the long game, man. And now here we are. So we have a large part of our country. The majority of young people in our country are not proud to be an American. They're not proud, of their country. They've been taught to hate their country. So psyops has been going on for generations. So I'm going to disagree with you a little bit there. I think that a lot of people have been brainwashed, and I think they vote for their ideology rather than their self-interest. People, I mean, we have Biden and the Democrats, blatantly saying, yeah, we're going to raise taxes. 30 years ago, 40 years ago, if a politician said that, he's not getting elected. That's how Ronald Reagan won. He said, I'm going to cut your taxes. And George Bush said, yeah, I'm going to raise your taxes. He said, I'm going to raise it. And he lost 48 states. He only won 2 states. So, but these days, they feel emboldened to say, yeah, because these Democrats, like California, New York, they know they don't have to work for the people because they know they're going to get reelected. There's no accountability. So I kind of, I like that thought you have. But I think that too many people vote against their self-interest just out of ideology. I think they vote, ideology. So I wish you were right, and I wish people would. But look, we have 8 million new illegal immigrants came across our border this year. Why isn't everybody up in arms? You still have people, So this is why sane people are scratching. This is why people like me are starting looking for other places to move to. I'm looking at the Philippines, still a traditional society. I'm looking at Poland. I'm looking at Russia. I'm looking, tell you, Rob, go on YouTube, do a search for expats, in Russia. It's pretty cool. There's a lot of interesting stuff there. So I wish I hope you're right. I don't think so, though. I think too many people.
I want to highlight something here, but before I highlight it, I want to show you something as well. So I've spoken about this book a few times. It's called Invaded by J.J. Carroll. J.J. Carroll was a border protection guard, and he worked for 24 years, whatever it might be, and he takes you through the entire destruction of the American economy from his perspective. So again, this is a really, really great read and listen, and it's mandatory. And as you were talking about illegal immigration, I wanted to take just a second here to highlight something that happened in 2001. So 23 years ago in Australia, we had an election where John Howard, the leader of the then Liberal Party, won that election. And he won based on immigration. But he won because there was a whole bunch of illegal boat people that were trying to get to Australia. So this is a really insidious industry that exists in Indonesia and in Malaysia and in Vietnam and these parts of the world where they prey upon people trying to come to Australia. And back in the day, they would get, they are literally boat people. They get on these little pissant fucking wooden dhows, try and cross a vast expanse of ocean to try and land in Australia, get picked up by the authorities and distributed into Australian society. These days, they don't even touch the mainland of Australia. You fucking don't pass go. You'll go straight to Nauru or you go straight to Christmas Island and piss off, and you'll never get asylum here. And the reason the Australian government did that is because too many people were dying at sea. If you want to come here illegally, don't ever come here by boat, because you will never. They'll put you in a cell, pretty much, in a tropical island, and then you'll be sent back to wherever it is that you came from. You'll never get political asylum here in Australia. So the laws that we have now are from the lessons learnt of the Labor government. And now the climate change minister, Chris Bowen, who's systematically destroying the Australian economy, he was the immigration minister under a Labor government, which was responsible for more than 2,500 people dying at sea. He's got the blood of 2,500 people dying at sea on his hands. He's single-handedly responsible as the minister for it. And nobody remembers that for some reason. Let me just rewind the clock, because that was the mid-2000s, back to 2001. There was boat people coming, and at sea, the laws of sea say that if there's somebody in distress, the nearest ship has to go and pick it up. And then you've got to go and pick these people up and bring them to a safe place. And at the time, there was a ship called the MV Tampa. It was a merchant vessel. And the Tampa picked up the distress call on Channel 16 and picked up all the people. And at the time, it was this big, massive media beat up that the government couldn't control the borders, and it was all that. And John Howard won the election based on this comment. He said, "We will decide who comes to Australia, and we'll decide the circumstances in which they come to Australia. They won't be able to come here under my government illegally like that anymore. And Australia went, fuck yeah, get rid of them. We don't want these fucking people here. Get out of here. Yeah. And now we have Anthony Albanese from the left side of government, who's imported more than 1 million fucking immigrants to Australia in the last 12 months, which is collapsing our society. It's fucking gridlock, man. I've never seen so many fucking people in this pissant suburb where I live, man. It's just completely destroying society. And I think last time we spoke about this, it's a little bit different in Australian society because these people are coming here legally. But the Australian government has opened the floodgates for these people, making it easier for them to come in. But they come in and they've got a bank account full of money, $50,000, $60,000 that they have to have here, and they stick them in the regional areas, and they're not allowed to leave the regional areas for a couple of years. So in some ways it's okay, but over a period of time, they want to leave those pissant regional areas and come to the cities. And that's actually filtering through now, where they've done their time in the regional area. Now they're trying to come to the cities. Go and try and rent an apartment around here in Cronulla. I promise you there'll be 60 or 70 people trying to rent the fucking dump that is 45 years old, has never ever been renovated, and I want you to pay $800 a week to live in this fucking awful place. It's just unbelievable what the government has done. The cost of living has gone up because of legal immigration, and it's destroying Australian society. But if we didn't have that legal immigration here, Australia would be in a recession. That's how completely and totally mismanaged the government actually is. They would prefer to have inflation of 25% and nobody being able to afford to do anything, nobody can get anywhere because the infrastructure doesn't support it, than be in a recession. I think I would rather be in a recession in the economy and all of those people fuck off out of here and go home. If you've been here less than 5 years, sorry, your visa's cancelled, get the fuck out of here. We're going to ship you on a plane and get you out of here. No more, man. Enough. The Liberal government's the same. We're going to reduce immigration to 140,000 people. What? Where are we putting these people? There's nowhere to... Australia's a big place, but there's a big place full of fucking nothing. It's a desert. Yeah? And now we have the government rolling out the digital ID. And everything that you do is now connected to that. If you're on X like we are right now, live on X, if you're on YouTube, you're on Rumble, you're out there saying all of these things that you shouldn't be saying against the government, fucking cancel your bank account. Yeah, you don't like it, mate? Shut your fucking mouth. This is the best country in the world. Shut up. I want you to shut up and sit in a corner like that. You're a useless fucking eater. Shut up and be in the corner. That's what your government wants for you. It's a complete illusion that these politicians are here to help us. These politicians are here to destroy us and turning you. They're not the servants of us. We're the supplicants of them. It is really a tyranny. The Australian government, in every aspect of the Australian government, is a tyranny. And anybody that voted for the digital ID is a tyrant. They're tyrants. That's the unspoken truth, is that these people want you to be under their jackboot. And you're not allowed to have a voice. You're not allowed to be prosperous in society. You're not allowed to do anything. What you'll do is you'll get a digital ID and a universal basic income, and you'll shut up over in the corner there and you'll be quiet. Otherwise, we're going to divide society, yeah? We're going to end up in a place of apartheid. And I just want to take 1 second here to transition to show you what the end result of this is. Because this digital ID is the beginning of the end. It's not the end of the beginning, it's the beginning of the end. And this, in my view, is what the beginning of the end will look like. Pretty soon, there won't be enough people that will come here to do it. So this is not the United States, this is downtown Durban, right? And this is what it looks like earlier in the week from somebody on X. And when there's no people that want to participate in society and work in your stupid fucking liquor shop or work in these places, society descends into this. And we've seen this in Sydney already. And funny enough, we've seen this in Chris Bowen's electorate, the Minister for Climate Change, in some back alleys and some places where he's responsible for it. This is what it actually looks like in fucking Sydney. I was thinking of just getting them in my car and driving around and showing you the real unspoken truth of what Sydney looks like and the collapse of our population, or the collapse of our society because of importing population. This is what's actually going to happen. This is what it's going to turn into. And we've all seen the footage and the videos of what it looks like in some parts of the United States because of fentanyl and all of the zombies that are out there. This is coming to your country as well. Australia is just the first cab off the rank, the first major cab off the rank.
It's already here. It's everywhere in the world. No, the societies. Okay, I'm going to sound like a broken record here, but the societies that have been touched the least are the ones who have held on to their traditional values the most. You know. Hey guys, I got to tell you, I've seen all the videos. I've talked to people who've been there. You go to Moscow, the streets are clean, the subway is clean and modern. It's safe. You hear people, most places, in Russia are safe. In most places in Poland, in Hungary, where women can walk late at night alone and feel safe. Budapest, where is and where's Tate? Where's anything? Is it Budapest?
Romania.
Yeah, women can walk around late at night, without fear of being so the societies that held on to their traditional core values, those are the ones where you're less likely to see that kind of a chaos. But
let's talk about that a little bit. That's a nice little segue and transition, because I feel like I'm on my high horse a little bit here, and I don't want to do that and hog the mic. What do you think about the Slovakian Prime Minister, the attempted assassination of them, and what he had done previously earlier in the week was rejected the WHO pandemic treaty? Get fucked, Tedros, you fucking piece of shit. Fuck off. No, we're not doing anything the WHO says. We're not doing anything the UN says. Get fucked. Get the hell out of here. And Ukraine, you can also go fuck yourself as well. That's the lay way of saying it. He's a politician and he's much more eloquent with his words, but I'll cut through all of the political spin and say exactly what he said, because he was very harsh in his language about it. He's not using cuss words like I am, but he's essentially saying that, and then somebody shoots him 5 times at an event. And if you look at the Secret Service and his security detail, man, what an absolute fucking lapse in security that was. I saw Putin get off the plane to Beijing or wherever he landed, and the security detail there's no possible chance ever something like that would happen to Putin or to Xi Jinping. Just the security detail is so squared away, and also with the US president as well, the security detail is pretty squared away there as well. That's the most detailed there is in the world, if you ask me. So how did this Slovakian prime minister get clipped like that? If you ask me, that's a CIA assassination, not towing the line. Fucking, this is where you're going, pal. What about the former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe of Japan, who was also assassinated, who also said to Pfizer, get fucked and fucking take your fucking garbage shit out of here. He was also against all this WHO nonsense, this United Nations nonsense, this fucking forced injection of this forced sterilization of everybody, this fucking Nazism that they're trying to implement on the world like that. He was fucking assassinated for it as well. The Slovakian, watch out, Mr. Viktor Orban. You're next, pal. Watch out for the Czech Prime Minister as well. Watch out, man. And the Serbian one as well. Watch out. They're coming for you, man. This is what's going on.
Yeah, well, and another telling aspect of that assassination is the utter silence in the mainstream media about it. I didn't hear a peep in the mainstream media about it. I found out about it, on YouTube, on YouTube search. So they're playing it down, right? And again, this is part of the control. They control the narrative. They don't want people asking too many questions. But yeah, listen, the WEF, the United Nations, the WHO, these are not cute little,
There's a robot overlord running them all, man. That's what happens, and you can't get rid of those people either. If Klaus Schwab suddenly killed over and carked it because he's 192 years old, there'll be some other dickhead that takes his place. Oh, yeah. If Bill Gates falls over and carks it because he's pretty old too, there'll be some other dickhead that takes his place, and the robot entity or whatever freaking entity it is that's running it all is extremely, extremely coordinated. I want to get your take on this, because this week there was supposed to be elections in Ukraine, but there's no elections in Ukraine, which means Zelensky is an illegitimate leader. Why on earth are we continuing to support these war crimes that are happening daily. Ladies and gentlemen, come on over to the Unspoken Truth Telegram channel. The link's in the description below this video, and you'll see the daily war crimes that I'm aggregating. I've never aggregated so many of them. I haven't done it for a couple of days, but if I sit there today and look, and I got some time today, I'll go and pull out about 50 of them in the space of about maybe 20 minutes. Honestly, I can pull out one war crime every fucking 30 seconds, where there's Ukrainian soldiers committing war crimes that are outside the laws of armed conflict. I don't care what the Russians are doing, because we're not supporting Russia. We're not giving Russia 1 cent. Well, actually we are, by buying all the oil off Turkey and India, but we're not supporting them directly, saying that they're the good guys. Russians, they're committing war crimes too, but whatever, man. We're not the Australian government's given Zelensky $1 billion now. We clocked over that mark, and we still continue to do that, but nobody's held accountable for war crimes. What's going on, man?
Well, 2 years ago, here on the Unspoken Truth,
you were saying the same thing.
That's right. You and I were having this discussion, and this is freshly on the new invasion. Russia, these are pretty bad guys, and only here in the Unspoken Truth, maybe a couple other places, where we said, hold on a second, Ukraine isn't as nice a country as you think it is. They're not the paragons of virtue that's being portrayed in the media. Do you know who these people are? So the idea, the idea that he suspended elections, I'm shocked that there is gambling going on in this casino. I'm
shocked that there's sex happening in this brothel.
Yeah.
Which is what the Ukrainian government is. It's a fucking shit show, man.
It's a shit show. So people don't be convinced by our politicians and by mainstream media that supporting Ukraine is a noble cause. The humane thing would be for this war to play itself out, and it would have been over a year and a half ago, and hundreds of thousands of lives would have been saved. That would have been the humane thing to happen. There was a peace agreement on the table a year and a half ago.
I wonder, we started out talking about population and depopulation, and maybe there's some version of that in some strange AI governed world that we live in, where that's actually deliberate. But what we're seeing with the population collapse in Ukraine, I saw some stats the other day, more than 500,000 Ukrainian men have been killed in this conflict, and there's about 300,000 that are severely injured, and there's another 100,000 of some other category, I can't remember. So you're nudging up against 1 million of their best and brightest in their society. The demographic of between 18 and like 50, that demographic has been completely eliminated from their society. It's an absolute tragedy, man. And it's a travesty that it continues to go on like that. Last week, there was the Russian May Day parade that came out, and I played that live here on YouTube, and man, it got some people fucking riled up in the comments, and they're like, oh, you're such a biased fucking typical Western reporter, laughing at all the Russian equipment and stuff like that. And all of these angry comments that are coming on this video, and all I'm doing is sharing my opinion about what's happening and what I'm seeing on a parade. And I couldn't care less about the comments, because my knowledge of military hardware and equipment is far superior than anybody that's commenting on it. And I've been watching this thing my entire fucking life, so I know exactly what I'm talking about. Never mind the fact that I was also in the military, right? So my credibility around those topics is not in question, but man, people are getting so riled up about it, and they're like, oh, you're just a shill for the Western media, you're saying this, you're saying that. And I'm like, I'm not a shill for the Western media. I don't give a fuck if Russia takes over Ukraine, and I don't give a shit if Ukraine fucking doesn't exist anymore, or if Ukraine win. I couldn't care less either way. I live in fucking Sydney, Australia. What do I give a shit? I don't care. All I'm doing is observing what I'm seeing. And I'm observing what I'm seeing because what I'm looking at is quite alarming, because in my region here in the Southwest Pacific and the Southeast Asia, we're on the cusp of a really fucking big battle between China and Taiwan, and Australia will be drawn into that. And I'm looking at the Russian conflict and the Ukrainian conflict from the perspective of an Australian that will be drawn into it. I'm of age and previous history where they could say, all right, everybody with previous military history, you now need to come to the recruiting office and off you go. because we've got a total of fucking 6 or 7 battalions of soldiers. We've got 4 warships, and all of that's going to be destroyed in the first fucking half an hour of the war with China. Literally destroyed. Our Air Force is going to be destroyed on the ground here in Australia. And the only thing that's going to save us is conscription. That's why I'm watching, because I'm watching to see what's actually going to happen. Because within 2 years, we're going to be at a war with fucking China. And maybe even North Korea as well. Like, man, what? I don't know why people get riled up by this stuff, man. It's just insane.
Well, there is another way to look at this, Rob.
Show me. What do you got?
Okay, well, in the spirit of, repopulating, the world, there are a lot of there are a lot of pretty young single girls now in Ukraine. So maybe you and I and Colin we can go all Genghis Khan over there. And
no, man, I don't want any more kids. Yeah, I got enough. That's it. They're all grown up as well. The last one's about to turn 18. That's it. I'm good.
Hey, you think Genghis Khan hung around?
Isn't it true that there's a percentage of people in that part of the world that have that Mongolian lineage in them, right? Yeah, that's where it comes from.
They're saying his DNA stretches around the world now.
Yeah.
A little bit, he's rumored to have sired 10,000 kids. I did the math once. That's not possible. 10,000 kids. He'd have to do one a day for like 25 years.
Or 2 a day for 12 and a half years.
Yeah. So, but for you young guys out there, if you're fed up with these feminists, look, in my opinion, the 2 biggest contributing factors to the depopulation of the world is artificial intelligence / social media and feminists.
Feminists.
I mean, man, who wants to date a girl who's constantly yelling at you and constantly telling you she doesn't need you? There are easier ways to go through life. Go to Ukraine, find a nice traditional girl who will be submissive and she'll be supportive. And she'll make you a sandwich. And
you're not really asking for all that much in your life, are you?
No. Listen, if I am expected to jump in front of the bullet for the woman, hey, make me a sandwich. I mean, that seems like a fair trade-off, don't you think?
I want you to do something for me this weekend, Ed. I'm going to show you a movie here which I think you'll really like, and let's kind of end on a bit of a lighter note here. It's called The Pod Generation, and you might recognize this girl from Game of Thrones and being the Dragon Lady. I'll just play it here for a little bit without the sound so we don't get pinged for a copyright, but it'll be okay. It's about how women don't need to have babies anymore. They can just go and...
Yeah.
The movie is actually... the movie's actually really well ahead of its time. Because when you think about it, it takes about 2 years to make a movie, right? A year of filming, maybe a bit less. So the idea for the movie must have been a couple of years back, and then they made the movie, and then they finally get distribution of it. So it's really, really ahead of its time when you watch it. It's a comedy, so it's a bit of a piss take, and it kind of skips over the total chaos that we have in society. I think it's set like 100 years into the future or something like that. They don't refer to a date, but they refer to the 22nd century in it at some point, right? So, but the premise of it is that a woman doesn't need to have a baby anymore, like physically, because she's concentrating on here, and they figured out how to have the baby in a pod. And when they go to the office, so we've seen all of this, right? And it sounds terrible, but if just humor me and watch it, because it's funny. It's funny, and it's quite accurate. But they sit down at the table with across from the woman, and they say, do you want to have a boy or a girl?
Hold on, and I'm going to predict that someone in the couple is a minority.
Yes, of course it is. Yeah. Like from the first opening scene, you'll go, why does she have a fucking black husband? But it's funny, man. It's funny. Just humor me, man, and just entertain yourself. Don't worry about the brainwashing in there, because it's an accurate description of how annoying AI actually is.
Yeah.
So in their dystopian view of the future, there's AI in everything. That opens the blinds in the morning, it makes you coffee, it talks to you. It's like fuck, stop it, man. Like leave me alone, sort of thing. And it's annoying you as you're watching it. But that's kind of the society that we're going to. Anyway, they're sitting at the table, and the woman says, "Do you want to have a boy or a girl?" And they look at each other and say, "Well, why don't we let nature decide what it is?" Like they want a surprise, and the woman's like, "Oh my God, what?" Because you can design your baby, right? You can design the kid that you want. And so is he going to be the father? And they kind of look at each other and like, well, yeah. Well, we don't need him anymore because we can just have a baby with you. And I'm sitting there thinking that these fucking feminists, yeah. But it's deliberately embedded, right? And it's funny. Yeah. And so these annoying feminists saying this shit that's in there, right? And I'm going, but you idiot feminists don't realize that if she has a baby without him, it's going to be a girl, and eventually there'll be no more men, and there'll be no more humans.
and who are going to be the inventors to invent this fucking technology you rely on? Men. Yeah. Well, not they didn't invent for everything. Who if you have a society full of women and your boat starts to go down, then you're all going down. There's no. You can't all get in the lifeboat.
That's true. If there's only women left in society, who's going to run the nuclear power station? Nobody. There's going to be a meltdown, and it's going to fucking blow up, and you're all going to die anyway. Like, yeah, it's insane.
Who's going to install the toilets? Who's going to pave the roads? Yeah, good luck with that.
It's funny because it makes fun of itself, and it's like a piss take of itself. And it ends really abruptly. It actually has a pretty good ending, where they kind of come to their senses in the end, which is kind of cool.
Is that movie out? Do you know the name?
It's on Netflix. Yeah, okay. So it's called The Pod Generation. So yeah, it's really good.
For me, movies like that, it's kind of like these dystopian movies. You've seen one, you've seen them all. They're all exactly the same. I know you love that shit, Rob. Just so the audience knows, Rob for about 30 years, he had a podcast called Nuclear War Survival. Literally.
I've been reading this book a lot. I've been marking the pages.
That's Rob's idea of light reading. He's going to be one of those people where if there's not a nuclear war, he's going to be disappointed because he loves this stuff.
Well, I've got to do something, man, because the digital ID's here in Australia, and soon I won't be able to eat because I'm not going to comply no matter what they say.
Yeah, well, now your plan is my plan is to bug in. Your plan is to bug out, right?
Well, yeah, I'm lucky because I do have that option to be able to do that, and to move away. I'm thinking seriously of moving away. So one of the things that you can do to get away from the digital ID is become an e-resident of a country. So you can become an e-resident of Palau and also of Estonia. And when you're an e-resident, you just pay a small fee. Yeah. It means you can get a bank account in those countries. Yeah. Get a bank account there, put your money in that bank account, and you just transact with your card here. And you're not subjected to it, so that's a way around it.
According to Annie Jacobson, according to her, New Zealand is supposed to be the optimal place to be
to survive the nuclear war.
Nuclear war, yeah. She said New Zealand, and she threw in Australia, but I think for the primo spot, like apparently New Zealand. Okay, they have so many mountains there that protect against winds and stuff, and it's got a lot of fertile land that will still produce.
You've never been to New Zealand, have you?
Never have, but it's on my to-do list.
Well, I can let me just share something before we go here. I'll share a story about New Zealand that you probably don't know. You probably can't get a direct flight from where you live in Minnesota. You probably have to fly to LA or San Francisco and then get on a connecting flight to Auckland or Wellington like that. But wherever you are in the world, whenever you get on a plane to go to Auckland or Wellington, you're not actually getting on an aeroplane. Did you know that? You've never heard this before? You never heard this story before?
No.
I've never told you this story. When you might get to the airport and you look and you go, oh, it's United Airlines and that's a 777 or that's a 787 Dreamliner. You go in and you sit down and you strap in and they do the normal thing like you're flying over the water and stuff and you're eating your food. But actually what you're getting in is you're getting in a fucking time machine. Yeah, because when you get to the other end in New Zealand, you'll get out there and you're like, dude, this is like 1983.
I love it. I love it.
What the actual fuck, man? Like, and it really is. I remember I got out of the plane in Wellington. Got, as you do at the airport, like when you travel a lot, you get really efficient at grabbing your bags, going through customs, and going straight to the counter, getting your car, walking out, getting your car. It's really efficient. And then I'm ready with my map, and I'm all good to go. And I drive out, and I'm like, okay, cool, here I am. And I'm like, that all took like 20 minutes. It was super efficient, right? I get out of there and in the car, and I'm suddenly pointing the vehicle north, driving towards Auckland, and I'm thinking, this is like the most country fucking rural place I've ever been. Like, what's going? And I kind of stopped on the side of the road and took a few photos, and then thinking like that. And then eventually I get to the motel a couple of hours later after driving for a little bit and just taking my time, right? And I get there, and the motel, I swear to you, man, it was something out of 1985. It was clean, it was nice, it was like it was renovated, and it wasn't modern. It had the decor from 1985, and the lady looked like she was straight out of 1985. The dress she was wearing, her hairdo, the way she spoke to me, the dude, her husband, the dog that was there, and all this sort of stuff. And I'm like, I didn't get on a Qantas flight to get to New Zealand. I actually travelled back in time. I must have went around planet Earth like 50 times, 10 times the speed of light, and I went back to 1985 like that. It was like something strange, but it is a beautiful place. It is a really, really cool place.
Why is that though? I mean, New Zealand has a fantastic reputation for being a freaking paradise, and it is a tiny country. It wouldn't take very much to fill it up. So why isn't it packed with people?
Because it's full of crime. So Susie lived in New Zealand. So she lived in England for a couple of years and then went to New Zealand. She lived there for 4 years, and virtually every day someone would break into her house, and eventually she left New Zealand because the crime was so bad there, it is really bad in that. There's an underbelly to that society that no one ever discusses or talks about. I'll get her to tell you about it sometime, and you'll just be blown away. And this was like a long time ago. This was in the early 1990s when she was there. And it was really, really bad. And my experience of going there, I've been there maybe half a dozen times. It's a pretty modern city. Like Auckland's modern, Wellington's really modern, but there's not much employment, man. And there's not much there. Like, it's small.
Yeah, but these days with the nomadic lifestyle, you would think, again, it wouldn't, as long as there's an internet connection, you would think. And of course, I think Jordan spent all of her money on global. She sent all the poor people's money to Davos.
She was the biggest fucking tyrant of all. In COVID, man. She was the worst tyrant of all. She's the worst leader in world history, man. Yeah, she's the nastiest, most vile, disgusting leader, man. Just fucking awful, these people, aren't they? These types. All right, Ed.
Okay, I'll let you go. Okay.
Why don't we wrap it there, folks? Thanks for joining us. Thank you, Colin, for your comments and your interaction there. We really appreciate that. Folks, don't forget to come on over and follow us on X, follow us on Telegram, and check out the unspokentruth.com.au website. We'd love to hear your feedback on the show, so make sure if you've got some angry comments, put them down below and we'll comment on them. Remember, I'm not for one side in the war with Russia or Ukraine. I couldn't care less if they destroyed each other. Good. But I'm watching as an observer and as an ex-military observer, looking at that to see what's going to happen in our region, and I think the same is going to happen to us.
I'll say it. And bring the comments. I don't care. I want Russia to win. Just there you go. But just up to the Dnieper River. I want us, up the Dnieper, and then you're good. And I think Putin will be happy with that. And for all of you young guys out there, man, get fucking busy. Don't make me have to reverse my vasectomy.
There it is. See you, everyone. See you, Ed. Bye, mate.
Bye.